Today, I want to talk to you about something that affects every one of us: guidance, seeking wisdom in your decisions. Every single day, you and I are faced with choices. Some are small and simple, but others shape the course of our future. The good news is, you don't have to figure it all out on your own. God is not distant. He's not silent. He's not waiting for you to make a mistake. He's a loving Father who promises to guide your steps. Scripture tells us that when we acknowledge Him in all our ways, He will direct our paths. That means when you're unsure, when you're standing at a crossroads, when you don't know which door to walk through, God already sees the bigger picture. He knows what's ahead. He knows what's best. Sometimes we rush decisions because we feel pressure. We lean on our own understanding. But real peace comes when we pause and say, Lord, I trust you. Give me wisdom. Order my steps. You may be facing a decision about your career, your family, your finances, or your future. Instead of worrying, turn it into a prayer. When you seek God first, He will give you clarity. He will open the right doors and close the wrong ones. What you thought was confusion will turn into confidence. This is your season to walk in divine direction. As you seek His wisdom, you're going to make better decisions, avoid unnecessary heartache, and step into the blessings He has already prepared for you. Get ready, God is about to guide you into something greater than you imagined. When you're standing at a crossroads, unsure which way to go, it's easy to feel pressure. Your mind starts racing. What if I choose the wrong path? What if I miss my opportunity? What if this decision sets me back? We've all been there. The uncertainty can feel overwhelming, but here's the powerful truth you have to hold on to. God already sees the outcome. Before you ever arrived at this moment of decision, He was already there. Before the question formed in your mind, the answer was already in His hands. He's not reacting to your life in real time. He's already gone before you and prepared the way. We see life one day at a time. We see pieces, we see fragments, but God sees the whole picture from beginning to end. He sees where each door leads. He sees the opportunities that will grow you and the distractions that will drain you. He sees the relationships that will bless you and the situations that would have broken you. When you understand that God sees the outcome, it takes the pressure off. You don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to map out every detail. Your responsibility is not to control the future. Your responsibility is to trust the one who already holds it. Sometimes we struggle because we want certainty before we move forward. We want guarantees. We want a clear blueprint. But faith doesn't work that way. Faith says, God, I may not see what you see, but I trust that you're leading me in the right direction. When you truly believe that God sees the outcome, you stop obsessing over every possible mistake. You stop replaying worst-case scenarios in your mind. Instead, you lean into confidence, knowing that even if you don't understand the process, God understands the purpose. There are moments when things don't unfold the way you expected. You prayed about it. You thought it was the right move. But then obstacles appeared, delays happened, doors closed. It's tempting in those moments to think you missed it, that you misunderstood, that somehow you failed. But closed doors don't mean God has abandoned you. Often, they're proof that He's protecting you, because He sees outcomes you cannot see. He knows what would have happened 6 months down the road, a year down the road, 5 years down the road. What feels like disappointment today may actually be divine direction. Trust grows when you remind yourself that God's perspective is eternal. He is not limited by time, by resources, or by circumstances. What looks impossible to you is already resolved in His plan. What feels confusing to you is clear in His vision. When you trust that God sees the outcome, you stop making decisions out of fear. Fear says, I have to grab this now or I'll miss out. Trust says, if it's meant for me, God will bring it to me at the right time. Fear rushes. Trust rests, Fear pressures. Trust waits with confidence. You don't have to manipulate situations to make them work. You don't have to force doors open. If you have to push, beg, and strain to make something happen, that's often a sign it's not the path God has chosen for you. When God leads, there is a sense of alignment. It may still require effort, discipline, and courage, but there is an underlying peace. That peace comes from knowing that the one who sees the end from the beginning is guiding your steps. Think about how much anxiety comes from trying to predict every outcome. We analyze, we calculate, we overthink. We talk ourselves in and out of decisions 10 times in one day. But what if instead of trying to predict the outcome, you simply trusted the one who already knows it? What if you approached each decision with prayer, humility, and faith, believing that God is ordering your steps even when you can't see the full path? That kind of trust frees your mind. It quiets the noise. It replaces panic with stability. There will be times when you don't feel 100% certain. That's normal. Trust doesn't mean you'll never have questions. It means you refuse to let questions control you. You move forward with the light you have. You seek wisdom. You listen for God's direction. And then you take the next right step, believing that He will adjust your path if necessary. Even if you make a mistake, God is so sovereign that He can redirect you. His plan is not so fragile that one wrong turn can destroy it. He is bigger than your missteps. When you internalize the truth that God already sees the outcome, you begin to live with a calm assurance. You're no longer shaken by every delay. You're no longer devastated by every closed door. You start to see setbacks differently. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" you begin to ask, "What is God positioning me for?" That shift in perspective changes everything. It turns confusion into expectation. It turns waiting into preparation. Your life is not random. Your decisions are not outside of God's awareness. He is involved, attentive, and intentional. He sees the connections you haven't made yet. He sees the blessings that are forming behind the scenes. He sees the growth that will come from the challenges you're facing right now. When you trust His direction, you align yourself with His greater vision. And when you align with His vision, you walk with confidence, knowing that every step is being guided by a God who already knows exactly where you're headed. Wisdom begins when we seek God first. In a world filled with opinions, advice, social media voices, and endless information, it's easy to look everywhere else before we look up. We ask friends what they think. We scroll through articles. We analyze trends. We weigh pros and cons. None of that is wrong. But if God is not first in the process, we're building on unstable ground. True wisdom doesn't start with human reasoning. It starts with divine direction. When you put God at the center of your decisions, you invite clarity where there was confusion and peace where there was pressure. Seeking God first is an act of humility. It's saying, "Lord, I don't know everything. I can't see everything. I need you." Pride tells us we can figure it out on our own. Pride says our experience is enough, our intelligence is enough, our instincts are enough. But humility opens the door for supernatural insight. When you acknowledge God before making a move, you position yourself to receive wisdom that goes beyond logic. You tap into a higher understanding. You gain perspective that you could never manufacture on your own. So often we reverse the order. We make the decision and then we ask God to bless it. We move ahead with what feels right and then we pray, "Lord, please let this work out." But wisdom begins before the step is taken. It begins in the quiet moments of prayer. It begins when you pause instead of rushing. It begins when you ask, "God, what do you want? What is your will in this situation?" That pause may seem small, but it changes everything. It shifts the focus from self-reliance to God, dependence. When you seek God first, you become sensitive to His leading. Sometimes His guidance comes as a gentle nudge. Sometimes it's a sense of peace. Sometimes it's a check in your spirit that says, wait. If you're always in a hurry, you'll miss it. If your mind is always crowded with noise, you won't recognize His voice. Seeking God first requires intentional time with Him. It requires moments of stillness where you can hear beyond your own thoughts. Wisdom grows in those quiet spaces. There's something powerful about starting your day by inviting God into it. Before the emails, before the meetings, before the responsibilities pile up, you say, Lord, guide my steps today. Give me wisdom in every conversation. Help me make decisions that honor you. That simple prayer sets the tone. It aligns your heart. It reminds you that you're not navigating life alone. Instead of reacting impulsively, you respond thoughtfully because you've already anchored yourself in God's presence. Wisdom is not just about knowing facts. It's about knowing the right application at the right time. Two opportunities may look equally good on paper, but one aligns with your purpose and the other leads you away from it. Human reasoning might not detect the difference, but when you seek God first, He highlights what truly matters. He brings clarity to your motives. He reveals whether you're acting out of fear, pride, or genuine calling. That kind of discernment protects you from unnecessary detours. Sometimes seeking God first means waiting longer than you'd like. We live in a culture that celebrates speed, quick decisions, instant results, immediate gratification. But wisdom often requires patience. When you ask God for direction, you may not receive a detailed answer overnight. Instead of growing frustrated, you learn to trust the process. You understand that delay is not denial. God may be arranging circumstances behind the scenes. He may be developing your character so you're ready for what's ahead. He may be closing doors you would have walked through too quickly. Seeking God first also brings alignment between your desires and His purpose. The more time you spend with Him, the more your heart begins to reflect His heart. Decisions that once seemed appealing may lose their attraction. Paths that once felt intimidating may start to feel right. That's because wisdom reshapes your priorities. It shifts your focus from temporary gains to eternal impact. You start asking different questions. Instead of what will make me look successful, you ask what will bring lasting fulfillment. Instead of what is easiest, you ask what is right. When challenges arise, wisdom keeps you steady. If your decisions are rooted in prayer, you won't be easily shaken by opposition. You won't abandon your course at the first sign of difficulty. You'll remember that you didn't choose this path lightly. You sought God. That confidence gives you resilience. It helps you stand firm when others question you. It helps you stay focused when distractions appear. Because you know you didn't move on impulse, you moved on conviction. Seeking God first doesn't mean ignoring practical steps. It means inviting Him into every practical step. You still plan, you still prepare, you still use your skills. But you do it with a surrendered heart. You remain open to adjustment. You hold your plans loosely, knowing that God's wisdom is greater than your strategy. That posture keeps you flexible. It allows God to redirect you without resistance. There is a difference between knowledge and wisdom. Knowledge informs, but wisdom transforms. Knowledge fills your mind, but wisdom guides your life. And wisdom begins the moment you say, God, you come first. When you make Him your priority, your decisions become more intentional. Your words become more thoughtful. Your actions become more aligned with your purpose. You stop chasing every opportunity and start choosing the ones that truly matter. As you consistently seek God first, you'll notice a shift. Decisions that once felt overwhelming become manageable. Anxiety begins to fade. Confidence begins to rise, not because you suddenly know everything, but because you trust the one who does. That trust becomes the foundation of your wisdom. It influences how you lead, how you serve, how you respond, and how you move forward each day. Peace is confirmation of the right decision. In a world full of noise, pressure, and competing voices, peace becomes one of the most powerful indicators that you are moving in the right direction. It doesn't always mean the path will be easy. It doesn't mean there won't be challenges or hard work ahead. But deep down in your spirit, there is a calm assurance that settles your heart. That kind of peace doesn't come from circumstances lining up perfectly. It comes from knowing that God is guiding your steps. Many times we think the right decision will be the one that looks the most impressive or the most exciting. We assume it will come with fireworks and overwhelming emotion. Sometimes it does, but often the strongest confirmation is quiet peace. It's a steady confidence that remains even when logic raises questions. You may not have every detail figured out, but you don't feel turmoil inside. There's no constant knot in your stomach. There's no lingering sense of dread. Instead, there's a gentle stability that says you can move forward. On the other hand, when something isn't right, there is usually unrest. You can try to ignore it. You can try to reason it away. You can tell yourself you're just nervous, but that inner agitation keeps resurfacing. That lack of peace is not something to dismiss lightly. It can be God's way of protecting you. Sometimes the opportunity looks perfect on the outside, but inside there's confusion and heaviness. Peace acts like a compass. When it's absent, it's worth pausing and reevaluating. Peace doesn't mean you won't feel natural nerves. Stepping into something new can stretch you. Growth often requires courage, but there's a difference between healthy nervousness and deep spiritual unrest. Healthy nervousness says, "This is new, but I believe it's right." Spiritual unrest says, "Something is off." Learning to recognize that difference is part of spiritual maturity. The more time you spend seeking God, the more familiar you become with His peace. You start to notice when it's present and when it's missing. There are times when others may not understand your decision. They may question it. They may even discourage you. If you base your confirmation on other people's approval, you'll constantly second-guess yourself. But peace is internal. It's not dependent on applause or agreement. When you have prayed, sought wisdom, and truly surrendered the outcome to God, His peace becomes your anchor. Even if others doubt you, you remain steady because your confidence is rooted in something deeper. Peace also protects you from rushing. When you feel pressured to decide immediately, it's wise to slow down and check your spirit. Pressure often leads to impulsive choices. Peace invites patience. If a door is truly from God, it won't require panic to walk through it. You won't have to compromise your values or ignore red flags. Peace allows you to move deliberately, without fear of missing out. It reminds you that what is meant for you cannot be taken away by a short delay. Sometimes peace comes after surrender. You may wrestle with a decision for days or even weeks. You analyze every angle. You weigh every option, and then you finally say, "God, I trust you. Your will, not mine." In that moment of surrender, peace washes over you. Nothing externally may have changed, but internally everything feels lighter. That shift is powerful. It signals that you've aligned your heart with God's direction. You're no longer trying to control the outcome. You're trusting Him with it. Peace also gives you strength during uncertainty. Even when the future is unclear, peace keeps you from being overwhelmed. It stabilizes your emotions. It guards your thoughts. Instead of replaying worst-case scenarios, you rest in the assurance that God is at work behind the scenes. You may not see immediate results, but you're not consumed by anxiety. That calm confidence becomes a testimony in itself. Others notice when you're not shaken by circumstances that would normally cause stress. When challenges arise after you've made a decision, peace helps you stand firm. Every worthwhile path will face resistance. There will be moments when you're tempted to retreat. But if you remember the peace you felt when you made the choice, it strengthens your resolve. You remind yourself that you didn't move based on impulse or emotion. You moved with confirmation. That memory sustains you when doubts try to creep in. Peace is not passive, it's active assurance. It shapes how you speak, how you act, and how you respond. When you're at peace, you don't feel the need to defend your decision constantly. You don't feel threatened by alternative opinions. You're secure. That security frees you to focus on the work ahead instead of constantly looking back. It keeps your energy directed forward rather than wasted on regret. As you grow spiritually, you begin to value peace more than excitement, more than recognition, more than quick success. You realize that lasting fulfillment is connected to alignment with God's will. Peace becomes a priority. You learn to ask yourself, do I have peace about this? Not just once, but repeatedly. Because peace is not only confirmation at the beginning, it's ongoing reassurance along the journey. When you cultivate sensitivity to God's peace, decision-making becomes clearer. You're not driven by fear or ego. You're not swayed by every external voice. Instead, you're anchored in that quiet confidence that reassures you step by step. And as you continue to seek wisdom and trust God's guidance, that peace becomes a steady companion in every choice you face. Closed doors are divine protection. It's not always easy to see it that way in the moment. When you've prayed, prepared, and positioned yourself for an opportunity, only to watch it slip away, disappointment can hit hard. You may wonder what went wrong. You may question whether you missed God's timing or made a mistake somewhere along the way. But not every closed door is a setback. Sometimes it is God stepping in to shield you from something you cannot see. We naturally assume that open doors are always blessings and closed doors are always losses, but God's perspective is higher than ours. He sees the full landscape of your life. He knows the consequences attached to every path. What looks promising today may carry complications tomorrow. What appears attractive on the surface may lead to frustration or regret later. When a door closes despite your effort, it may be because God, in His mercy, is redirecting you away from unseen trouble. There are times when you'll feel fully qualified and ready, yet the opportunity doesn't come through. You may have the experience, the talent, the passion. Everything seems aligned, but something blocks the path. Instead of interpreting that as rejection, consider the possibility that it is protection. God may be preserving your time, your energy, and your future for something that fits you better. He may be preventing you from entering a situation that would drain you or distract you from your purpose. Closed doors can also guard your character. Some opportunities come too early. You may desire them sincerely, but you're not yet prepared for the weight they carry. If God allowed certain doors to open prematurely, the pressure could overwhelm you. The visibility could expose weaknesses you haven't had time to strengthen. In His wisdom, God sometimes delays access so He can develop your foundation. What feels like exclusion may actually be preparation. It's important not to force doors that are clearly closing. When you push relentlessly against resistance, when you try to manipulate circumstances or convince people who have already said no, you step outside of peace. Divine doors do not require desperation. If God intends for you to walk through something, He has the power to make it clear and accessible in His timing. Trusting that truth keeps you from exhausting yourself chasing what was never meant to be yours. Closed doors also refine your trust. When things don't unfold according to your plan, you're faced with a choice. You can grow bitter, or you can grow deeper in faith. You can allow disappointment to harden you, or you can let it humble you. Choosing trust in the middle of a closed door strengthens your spiritual maturity. It shifts your mindset from "why did this happen to me?" to "what is God protecting me from?" That shift brings peace even in uncertainty. There are moments when hindsight reveals the blessing behind a closed door. You look back months or years later and realize that what you once grieved was actually a turning point. The job you didn't get would have placed you in an unhealthy environment. The relationship that ended would have limited your growth. The deal that fell apart would have created unnecessary stress. What once felt like loss becomes evidence of God's careful guidance. Closed doors also redirect you toward alignment. Sometimes we pursue paths that are good but not best. They are appealing but not aligned with our calling. When those doors close, it forces us to reevaluate. It pushes us to seek God more deeply. It clears space for opportunities that reflect who we are becoming, not just who we were. That redirection may feel uncomfortable, but it positions you for greater clarity. Rejection often carries hidden instruction. It teaches resilience, it builds patience, it sharpens focus. When one door closes, you're invited to grow rather than retreat. Instead of internalizing it as failure, you can view it as refinement. Every closed door teaches you something about timing, about discernment, about dependence on God. It shapes your perspective so that when the right door opens, you step through with gratitude rather than entitlement. Trusting that closed doors are divine protection also frees you from comparison. You may see others walking through opportunities that didn't open for you. It's easy to question why their path seems smoother, but their journey is not your journey. What is right for someone else may not be right for you. God custom designs your path according to your calling, your capacity, and your future. When you trust that, you stop measuring your progress against someone else's timeline. Protection sometimes feels like delay. It sometimes feels like redirection. It can even feel like silence. But just because a door is closed doesn't mean God is inactive. Behind the scenes, He is aligning people, shaping circumstances, and preparing the right opportunities. He is clearing obstacles you didn't even know existed. He is ensuring that when the right door opens, it leads to growth instead of regret. When you begin to see closed doors through the lens of protection, your response changes. Instead of frustration, you choose faith. Instead of striving, you choose surrender. Instead of replaying what could have been, you focus on what still can be. That mindset keeps your heart open and your spirit steady. It allows you to walk forward with confidence, knowing that every door God allows to close is part of a larger plan designed for your good and your growth. Patience positions you for God's best plan. In a culture that celebrates speed and instant results, patience can feel uncomfortable. We want answers now. We want doors to open immediately. We want clarity without delay. But God often works in seasons, not seconds. His plans unfold with purpose, and patience becomes the space where preparation takes place. When you learn to wait with trust instead of frustration, you place yourself in alignment with something greater than your own timing. Waiting is not wasted time, it is developmental time. While you are waiting, God is shaping your character, strengthening your faith, and refining your motives. You may think you are standing still, but beneath the surface, growth is happening. Just because you cannot see progress does not mean there is no progress. Roots grow deep before branches stretch wide. The unseen development is what supports the visible success later. Impatience often leads to premature decisions. When you feel pressure to move quickly, you may settle for what is available instead of what is best. You may accept opportunities that are convenient but not aligned. You may compromise standards because you are tired of waiting. But patience guards you from settling. It keeps you steady long enough for the right doors to open. It reminds you that what God has prepared for you will not require you to rush ahead of His timing. There is a difference between inactivity and patience. Patience does not mean doing nothing. It means continuing to prepare while trusting God for the outcome. You keep developing your skills. You keep praying. You keep growing. You stay faithful in small responsibilities while believing for greater ones. That posture demonstrates maturity. It shows that you are not just focused on the reward, but committed to the process. Patience also tests your motives. When a promise takes longer than expected, you discover whether you truly trust God or simply wanted quick results. Delays reveal what is in your heart. They expose areas where fear tries to creep in. But when you choose patience, you silence the fear. You declare that God's timing is more reliable than your urgency. You affirm that His wisdom surpasses your understanding. Some of the greatest blessings require preparation that cannot be rushed. If the opportunity arrived before you were ready, it could overwhelm you. The responsibility might feel heavier than you anticipated. The success could expose weaknesses that needed strengthening. God's delays are often acts of mercy. He withholds certain doors not to deny you, but to prepare you. When the right moment comes, you will be equipped not only to receive the blessing, but to sustain it. Patience builds resilience. When you endure seasons of waiting, you develop endurance. You learn how to manage disappointment without losing hope. You learn how to celebrate others while trusting your own path. You learn how to remain consistent, even when results are not immediate. That resilience becomes part of your foundation. It strengthens you for future challenges and opportunities. Waiting also deepens your relationship with God. When answers are delayed, you are drawn closer to Him. You pray more sincerely. You listen more attentively. You rely less on your own plans and more on His guidance. Patience transforms waiting from a passive experience into an active pursuit of God's presence. Instead of focusing solely on the outcome, you begin to value the intimacy developed along the way. It is easy to grow discouraged when timelines stretch longer than expected. You may question whether you heard God correctly. You may wonder if you should have chosen differently. But patience calls you back to trust. It reminds you that God is not bound by human deadlines. His perspective encompasses eternity. What feels late to you is still perfectly timed in His plan. Trusting that truth protects your heart from bitterness. Comparison can threaten patience. When you see others moving ahead quickly, you may feel left behind. But each person's journey is uniquely designed. Their pace is not your pace. Their season is not your season. Patience helps you focus on your own growth instead of measuring your progress against someone else's timeline. It anchors you in the confidence that what is meant for you cannot be stolen or delayed beyond God's purpose. There is strength in steady faithfulness. When you remain diligent during waiting seasons, you build credibility and character. You show that your commitment is not dependent on immediate reward. That consistency prepares you for larger responsibilities. It shapes you into someone who can handle success with humility and challenges with grace. Patience also refines your expectations. As you wait, your understanding matures. What you once thought you wanted may shift. Your vision may become clearer. Your priorities may change. God uses time to align your desires with His will. By the time the opportunity arrives, your heart is ready to embrace it with gratitude rather than entitlement. When you embrace patience as positioning rather than punishment, your perspective shifts. Waiting becomes purposeful. Delays become developmental. You stop viewing time as an obstacle and begin seeing it as preparation. That mindset transforms frustration into anticipation. It keeps your faith alive. It steadies your emotions. It strengthens your resolve to trust